Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hello and welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. This is Gary Wilson, your host. We're glad to have you back. Hey, if you haven't done so, if you could do so, please subscribe to the podcast. It's on Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, all your favorite channels. And while you're online, go ahead and check out globalinvestoragent.com. We just built it, and it's strictly to showcase all the investor agents we trained around the country. We're now in 26 states. It's the largest team in the country, and we focus on you and me, who's the investor. So these guys have access to every parcel of property in the country, residential and commercial, and they know how to identify, attract, analyze, and negotiate these great deals on and off market. So grab yourself one of those agents. And if you are an agent, you should at least go on there and check it out and see what it's all about, because when this economy changes, could be this year, could be 5 years, nobody knows. We can only predict it, but why wait? Why not be prepared for that and position yourself to serve investors as well as owner occupants? So in any case, without further ado, we got a really great guest today, guys. Mark Yegge and I go back several years to a group called GoBundance. We were fellow mastermind members, and first time I met Mark, it was the first trip, and we were hiking up a mountain in Lake Tahoe, and I took the opportunity in one of the breaks to sit next to him and just talk, just to have a chat. And I found him to be one of the most down-to-earth guys you could ever meet, and brilliant, friendly, helpful, smart, and very successful. So Mark, if I hadn't blown up your head with that one, I don't know what else would, but welcome aboard, man.
Well, I can tell you, I got to keep those checks coming to you if I get intros like that. So thanks, Gary. Great to be here. Great to see you, and great to be part of your audience. I look forward to hopefully providing a little bit of value here so that everybody can create a little bit more. I love the title, Massive Passive. I mean, that's what it's all about, right?
That's it. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, if we could, Mark, so everybody listening, I just want you to know this. So our group, that mastermind group, was predominantly, filled with real estate guys, and Mark was sort of the contrarian in a very positive way. And most of us did not have our money just in real estate. We also had money in the stock market and other commodities. So the reason I want to have Mark on here, I'm so excited about it, is he can help create a balance for you so that you are diversified in a very smart and profitable way. So Mark, I'm going to kind of, since I know you, give you a little bit of free reign here, but why don't we talk about maybe the stock market and general terms educationally. And I know you've got a program you can help people with too. And if we have time, we can touch on crypto, which is the new thing, the new wave we've all been waiting for. So I don't know how much we can squeeze in a half hour, but why don't we go and start with your background and your stock market expertise and knowledge and hedge funds and all that stuff. So sound good?
Yeah, sounds great. So let me start with one of the words that you said, and that was education. That's really what I'm about. I'm about financial education. It's something we don't learn in school, and it's something that we have to go out and figure out ways to learn it outside of school, right? So the things in school, like Shakespeare and the Pythagorean theorem and Romeo and Juliet and the ancient Egyptians, those are all requirements. The things that aren't requirements are the things that we use every day, things like money, relationships, sex, and so those are the things that we have to teach, Gary. We have to be out there teaching people how to do it. Otherwise, they just kind of figure out how to do it by watching Kramer on TV or some show or listening to a podcast. And, that's all great, but we need to have better financial education. So you asked me about my past, and unfortunately, I'm getting to the fact where I probably have way more past than future, but I started investing when I was 12 years old, and I started putting money in the stock market for my lawn mowing money, and I made enough money to buy my first car. I basically taught my broker the method that I still use today. He was an E.F. Hutton broker, older guy, just didn't understand what I was doing with stocks and options. And I taught him basically how to do it. And years later, when I had my own brokerage firm, he actually became one of my clients, which is really interesting.
Wow.
But I've been in the stock market. I've had my own brokerage firm on Wall Street. I've sold it. I've been on the customer side. I've been on the brokerage firm side. I've had all the license you can possibly imagine. And I run 3 hedge funds today with different focus. And I also teach people what I do, because I believe that financial education is my way of giving people back income. And, we always hear about the word diversification, right? And diversification, most people think is, well, you put your money into a big basket of ETFs, exchange traded funds, or you buy a mutual fund with 500 gazillion companies in there, right? And you got some good ones in there, and you got some medium ones, and you got some that go out of business. And basically you just get an average return. Well, I don't wake up in the morning and go, oh, I want to be average today. Right. I wake up going, I want to be excellent. And so I always believe in trying to focus and not diversify within an asset class. I believe in concentrating within an asset class and diversifying among them. So I believe in real estate, even though I'm not very good at it. I believe in cryptocurrency. I believe in having passive income that comes from real estate, that comes from your business, that comes from the stock market, which I'll probably talk about in a couple of minutes if you give me a chance. So I believe that you should be diversified among asset classes, because one asset class could do really well and another asset class could do poorly, and then you have a bit of diversification. But if you're going to do anything, you got to do it well. And at the end of the day, most people in the stock market, and I know it's true with real estate, they don't have a system. And they hear a recommendation from the shoe shine guy or somebody on that's driving their Uber around that tells them to buy, the latest cryptocurrency, as you and I both know, or, the hottest stock. And pretty soon they buy it and they don't have a strategy, right? They don't have a system of rules. And you and I both know that money equals emotion, and emotion makes you make poor decisions. I don't know about you, but some of the worst decisions I've ever made in my life is when I was emotional, right? Yep. And some of the best decisions I ever made in my life was when I just sat with it and thought about it and let the right decision kind of come out. And so when emotions go up, intelligence goes down, and vice versa. So everything that I do, Gary, and my investors do, is we are geared towards using a system to prevent big loss, because one of the best ways to make money is to not lose money in the market. And then we also have a system for what to do in different kinds of markets, right? Here we are in the fourth month of 2022. It's been the worst start of a year since the Great Depression in 1939. Worst start. We've actually made money in our hedge funds. Most of my clients have made money in my cash flow machine program. There are ways to make money in all kinds of markets. And whether you're in real estate or whether you're in the stock market, whether you're in cryptocurrency, there are seasons, right? And so those seasons all come and go. And you know what? After summer, there's always a fall. And after fall, there's a winter. And then after winter, there's a spring. And there's different times and different seasons that you have to know how to react. So that's basically laying the landscape on a kind of a top-down 30,000 foot level. And maybe we can dig in wherever you want to.
Well, I tell you what, it's funny you mentioned that this has been one of the worst starts so far this year in the stock market. And very quickly, as soon as the year got started, I think it was like January 3rd, I'm looking at this thinking, wait a second, I've seen this before. So I quickly moved everything in a really conservative, more cash-based type things, which I don't like having money sit there. I want my money working for me. But all it was a temporary move. And then, sure enough, as things unfolded, inflation was the real monster, and Ukraine became a real thing, and interest now mortgage rates were 3% this time last year. Now they're over 5% now. So it didn't take a rocket scientist's brain to figure out, okay, we're headed for a correction. Maybe it's already started. Maybe it'd be another two. I just realized I'd rather be prepared, knowing that the inevitable is going to happen. Yep. And make adjustments there. So let's do this. I know a lot of people are really interested to pick your brain and find out, well, what should I invest in now? But when it comes to traditional stock market, I know you've got a couple hedge funds there. Whatever you're able to share, I know sometimes you might have to change the names to protect the innocent, but maybe let's just take one of the hedge funds that's doing well and focus on what industry what niche it's focused on, and where you see that going, and then from there, we can maybe move into another one, or just see how the time goes. But why don't we start there with one of the hedge funds? We'll
start there, but I won't get into. First of all, I won't give financial advice. But second, I mean, there's no reason to. Like, I can do this podcast. You can listen to this podcast 20 years from now, and it'll be just as true as it is today, because I'll talk about what we do as a system, and I'll use one of the stocks we're doing that as an example. So let me just kind of set it up by using an analogy. You're a real estate guy, and a lot of your listeners here are real estate people. So most people understand real estate because they can walk inside of it, they can touch walls, and it's tangible. So let's imagine that you open up, you look out your front window, and there's a big, beautiful lot across your street, and your neighbor Jim has it for sale. It's got a sign on it that says for sale, $100,000. And so Jim's trying to sell his, his acre lot or whatever it is for $100,000. And this guy, Bob, who happens to be driving down the street and happens to have heard a rumor that there's going to be a big hotel going up right next to Jim's lot, right across the street from your house, Gary. Like, he knows that this lot that Jim has for sale for $100,000, if Hilton puts in this big hotel, it's going to be worth $1 million. Problem is, Bob, a guy driving down the street, doesn't have the $100,000 that Jim wants to buy it. So what does he do? He goes to Jim and he goes, "Hey, Jim, I got an idea. Listen, take your property off the market for 6 months. I'll give you $10,000 to do that. And anytime in that 6 months, I can buy your property for $100,000. And Jim goes, "Wait a minute, let me get this straight. You're going to give me 10 grand, which I get to keep. And all I got to do is not sell the property for 6 months to anybody but you for the same price that I'm asking for it." And Bob goes, "Yep, that's the deal." They shake hands, they write up a contract, and they go on their separate ways. Well, a few days later, a couple things could happen. Thing number one, Hilton is going to put this huge thing, next door, and they read that in the paper, and now all of a sudden that lot's worth $1 million. And Jim goes to Bob, and he says, or Bob goes to Jim and he says, "Hey, Jim, I know your lot's worth $1 million, but I got this piece of paper that says you're going to sell it to me for $100,000. So he basically took his $10,000 investment and parlayed it into $1 million investment, right? So high reward for that $10,000 risk. Beautiful reward, right? But what normally happens, Gary, because you and I both know that information is imperfect, and that was a rumor. And Hilton never does build that property. And he loses his entire $10,000, right? But you know what? Jim got to keep the $10,000. So in this case, you've got high risk, high reward, right? The risk is the $10,000, but the reward is huge. But the reward happens so little that maybe or maybe not that it's worth it, right? And so who would you rather be in this transaction? If you had to do this transaction over and over and over again, you'd rather be Jim. Because Jim not only keeps the $100,000 lot, he now has reduced his cost in the lot by $10,000. So he's got $90,000 quote unquote basis, if you will. Mm-hmm. That's essentially what we do. Jim, or Bob, on the other hand, the guy that was driving down the street, lost all of his money. He could have made a fortune, but he didn't. Now, let's translate that to the stock market, because we could do the same exact thing with our stocks. Mm-hmm. And here's a statistic for you and your audience. It's 80% of options that are bought, like the one that Jim bought, or Bob bought from Jim, getting them confused, like the one that Jim bought, the $10,000 one, right? He spent $10,000. 80% of the time, those expire worthless. 80%. Wow. That means 20% of the time they make money, but 80% of the time they lose. But there's always two sides to every transaction. And in Jim's case, 80% of the time there's value in that option, right? Mm-hmm. So now imagine that you own some Amazon shares or some Tesla shares. Tesla's a big one. You wanted me to give you a name. Mm-hmm. Tesla's the one we're making lots of money in right now. And I've been making lots of money for 2.5 years in Tesla, and it's been working really, really well. But you can own Tesla shares and then give somebody else the right to buy your Tesla shares at a predetermined price before a predetermined date. And we shoot for making about 2 to 4% a month. Okay, let's just be conservative and say that's what we shoot for. We shoot for 2 to 4% a month. Well, 2 to 4% a month doesn't sound like a lot, does it? But 2 to 4% a month is 24 to 48% a year. Yeah. Right. And in this inflationary environment where we're debasing our currency, you need to stay ahead of inflation, which is not 8.5%. I don't know anything that I own. It's gone up 8.5%. It's more like 20, 25 for me. I agree. Maybe I spend on different stuff. Maybe my steaks are better than the steaks that Jerome Powell eats in Washington. But yeah. So that's what we do. So let me just get more granular. So for example, Tesla can be trading at $1,000 a share, right? Right now it's about $980 or something like that. Actually, 880. But let's just call it 1,000 for the numbers to be even, right? And you can give somebody else the option to buy your 1,000 shares of Tesla for $100 for the next month at $1,000. So you could basically make, let's round it off. I'm pretty close on the numbers. I could pull them up if you want, but it's $100 against your $1,000 Tesla. That's a 10% return. Now, those people are big gamblers. Those guys driving down the street, those gyms that want to spend that $100 for that month to take the opportunity. They need Tesla to go to at least 1,100 to be able to make their money. They're obviously thinking it goes to 1,200. If it goes to 1,200, they get their $100 back, and then they make an extra $100 back. So they make 100% return. But that stock's got to go up 20% for them to make money. I'd rather be the guy saying, hey, I own Tesla. I own that real estate, right? Yep. Let's go ahead and get the gambler to pay us for the right to buy it. And then at the end of the month, we can either decide to sell it to him, or we can just roll it over and find another gambler. So in this analogy, now that I'm flipping analogies and making you guys crazy, we want to be the house, right? We want to be the house because the house has a small percentage of winning. But the house has those beautiful casinos that were not built on the winners. They were built on losers that come in there and gamble away their money. And we get to be the house in the stock market. So, it could be Tesla today. It could be Amazon tomorrow. I'm short Amazon because it's going the other way. That's a whole different story. But it could be a lot of different stocks. So we want to have a system for when to buy those stocks, when to stay in them. What do we do when the stock starts to go down? What do we do when the market goes down, right? And there are rules that we have for all these systems. And the rules are there for one thing, Gary, and that's to take emotions out of the investing. Yeah. And because, we don't want those emotions to creep into our investment decisions because then we make stupid ones, right? Yep. So that's essentially what we do. I know it talked for a long time, but I wanted you to see that real estate analogy, and that's what we do in the stock market. Does it make sense?
It does. And I appreciate that. So we're getting more clarity here, and I'm sure everybody else is too. So going forward, like if somebody was to, say like a dentist or an engineer or somebody that has a consulting business, a business owner, they're really busy. You know what it's like when you run a business. You wake up in the morning and you hit the ground running. When you go to bed at night, your head, you're just exhausted. So, but systems, rules, like you said, not only takes the emotion out, but allows us to put things. I hate to use the word autopilot, but a set of processes that we follow regularly. So when we learn it and get good at it, it doesn't take an hour a day or 10 hours a week. We know how it works. We can execute. Can wake up in the morning, see what we've got to do, and execute that move. So can you go a little bit deeper and talk about the systems that you have and the education, the training? How can somebody like the dentist or engineer use that? What kind of time frame are they talking about? How many hours a week? Once they get through the learning phase, because the people I'm sure really want to do this, because the market it's if you look at the news, it's like a roller coaster.
Yep.
So
you can't look at the news, first of all.
Yeah. What's smart? I haven't owned a television since 2015.
Wow. Wow. Yep. Smart.
Yeah. So I do a lot more reading.
Yeah. No kidding. Yeah, for sure. So I think I know where your question is going. And let me say our system. So I have two kinds of investors. I have the investors that are so busy either living their life abroad and enjoying, Turkey and Venezuela with their family or whatever, traveling around the world and enjoying their life. And I have people that are working really hard and they don't really have time to learn other things, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then I have people that want to learn. So we've got two classes of investors, people that want to learn and people that want to have somebody else do it for them. Now, I have a saying, never give up your power in your health, your wealth, or your time. And when I say that, it's, so the analogy, right? You go into the doctor and the doctor goes, I'm sorry, Gary, you got 6 months to live, right? Yeah. And most people go, well, honey, I got 6 months to live. And then, 5 months and 29 days later, they drop dead. Or other people go, you know what? I'm going to go get another opinion and I'm going to go holistic. I'm going to change my diet. And you've heard these stories too. They live for another 5 or 10 years. Right. They didn't give up their power to some quote unquote expert. And I don't want you or anybody else to give up your power either. I want you to get financially educated. So you don't have to necessarily know everything about the market. You don't have to know everything about real estate, just enough to know that the people that you trust with your money are doing the right thing to make them earn your trust with your money. So I believe in that so powerfully. But so there are people that invest in my hedge funds, and I've got lots of doctors and dentists, and how many dentists? One dentist in my hedge fund. And then I have people that don't. They basically believe in my saying, don't give up your power in your health, your wealth, or your time. And so they want to learn my system. So I have this video-driven course where I teach them the exact same thing that I do in my program. In fact, it's a mastermind group around a course with a group of people. We meet every week. We talk about the stocks that we're in. We talk about our strategies. And it's a really great ecosystem for success, right? Because you and I both know that if you want to go learn how to play golf, you can go pick up a book by Tiger Woods or Phil Mickelson or whatever. You know, it doesn't make you a great golfer. But if you go and you read the book and you get coaching and mentorship and you're with people playing golf and they say, hey, you know, maybe you want to try it this way, think about it, you're going to have a much better chance of success. And that's what my ecosystem, it's called the cash flow machine. That's what we do. And so what we do in there is I've got 3 courses, a simple one, intermediate one, and a really advanced one. And there's about 150 different lessons in there. Now that sounds like a lot, but in the beginning, you just need a few core things. So if you were a carpenter, for example, you wouldn't need to have every tool in Home Depot, but you would have to have a certain number. You'd have to have a hammer, a couple of screwdrivers, a drill, maybe a saw, right? Mm-hmm. And you know, there's obviously other choices that you can have. And what we do is it's all about rules and tools. So we have rules. The cornerstones of our program are this. We encourage you to buy the right stock in the right market at the right spot on the chart, because there's a high probability spot on the chart where you can make the most amount of money. And then what we do what's called squeezing the juice or collecting the rent. It's the same kind of thing. And all of those things are, you know, when you buy a stock, you got a 50% chance of being right. You also have a 50% chance of being wrong, because there's a smart person on the other end of that trade that thinks he's right. Right. Mm-hmm. So the goal is to go from 50% at the moment you make that trade to ratcheting up your probabilities in your favor. Now, you're never going to be 100% sure. Otherwise, there's no market. There's no risk. But if you can get the probabilities in your favor, and we believe we can, we first of all, we choose the right stock. Highly institutionally supported, big cap stocks. You don't just go buy any stock. This doesn't work on any stock. It works on a certain number of stocks. They have to have the right fundamental criteria, earnings and growth and return on equity and great management products, all those things, right? Mm-hmm. So you get the right stock. Then you find the right market. The right market for me is like you're a sailor, right? If you're a sailor and you're trying to head into the wind because you're trying to buy a stock and the market's going down like it is today, mm-hmm. You got to go into the wind. It's a lot of work. But if you get the wind behind you, boy, things are a lot easier. The probabilities are much easier and things are a little bit less effortful, right? Yeah. And then you find the right spot on the chart, right? People go, I don't want to buy stocks at their highs. Well, you know what? It's not going to go to a new high unless it went to an old high. And so we want to buy stocks that are trending higher, that are not showing a lot of weakness. And, you know, we never know which way a stock is going to go, of course, but it's all about probability. So if we can get it from 50 to 55 to 60 to 65 by getting those probabilities in our favor, mm-hmm. it's like the poker, like Annie Duke. If you know Annie Duke or Phil Ivey, I think the guy's name, these guys that play poker on TV, mm-hmm. right? They don't win every hand, even though they might have aces in the hole. They don't win every hand because somebody might have 3 kings and crush them, but they have to bet those aces in the hole based on the probabilities. And if they sit there long enough and they play the probabilities right, they end up winning. So I don't know if that's the kind of drilling down that you wanted to do, but that's what we do. It's system, rules, and tools to remove emotions.
We'll be right back with the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast after I invite you to Monday Night Live. Every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, I teach a class without fail for you on subjects ranging from flipping to buying rentals, managing rentals, wholesaling, commercial, creative purchasing techniques, analyzing properties, identifying properties, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of subjects. And if you are a licensee, if you have a real estate license, you should definitely tap in, because there are a lot of investor agents also in the class. Many of them are on the global investor agent team. So you can learn from them, as well as from me, how to actually work with investors correctly and profitably. All right, we'll see you Monday night. The link is in the show notes. Go ahead and register. We'll get right to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So it really, you mentioned the part that there's a sweet spot. There's a part where you can statistically and based on probability and history, this is the point to buy. That's the critical thing. I mean, it's the first critical thing. So you mentioned obviously there's people who already are they've turned a corner. They're no longer using their time to work for money. They're using their money to enjoy their time. Sure. Then you got the other folks who are still in they're building their wealth. The dentist that's got multiple practices, and they have a plan where a solo dentist at 65 is thinking, gee, what do I do? I'm afraid of being stuck behind the chair forever because I'm the business. Whereas a business person owns several practices, and they hire dental graduate students to come and do the appointments for this, so they can actually rise above it. So let's talk about that person first, the person who's still in the game, building their wealth, building their empire. There's of the three programs, and I know everybody's different, but the one that's, say, the most advanced, is that the one that's there's more interaction, like through a mastermind group, like implementation, you implement things together that you learn. Or if you have time, you don't mind sharing the nature of the three different programs, that would probably help too,
So I'm going to shorten up my answers because I know that I might be talking too much here. So let me answer a question that I didn't even answer on the last one, and that is, how long does this take to learn? Well, the middle course, the elite course, is really the meat of our core. If you want to learn how to do our system, you've got to learn the vocabulary and the systems and the rules in the elite course. We have something called the fast launch course. You can get up and running in a couple of weeks, learn how to do this, but you can also go and get some free YouTube videos, and you know what those are worth, right? I even have some of those out there, right? And it's great. You can get up and running, and there's a system around it. But in order to be really good, you have to learn how to handle all the different, what I call cycles in the market. So up cycles, down cycles, side cycles, same with the stock. And so that elite program that we have is the middle course. But you know what? I'm almost to the point, Gary, where I don't want to sell our courses anymore. Right? I have had a lot of people succeed that have just taken the courses. And so, by the way, I believe that you should be in our mastermind group, right? Like anything worth doing is worth doing right. And I also, if you get in our mastermind group, and we don't need to talk about the price of that right now, but it's an investment. It's not a cost. It's an investment. And if you don't make your investment back, I'll give you your money back on the investment you made in our mastermind group, right? Like, so I stand behind what we do. I mean, you of course have to follow the system, but if you follow the system and you fall flat on your face, I'll give you your money back. Like, I believe so much in it. And why do I do that? Well, number one, I know it works. Number two, you don't know it works. So, there's risk on your part. And number three is I firmly believe, and I've seen it work so many times. So now I'm going to get to your other question. Try to be short. I've got, I don't know, maybe let's say 3 doctors that are active members in our program, and they all work, right? And the reason they love this, and I can pull up testimonials from this, the reason that they love it is because they really only need to dedicate about 20 minutes a week to doing it. Now, that being said, I'll tell you something funny. This program can be really addictive, right? You get into it, and I bill it as 20 minutes a week, and you certainly can do it 20 minutes a week, maybe an hour a month, right? Is the way I do this. And you just buy your stock. It's almost on autopilot. You buy your stock, you sell your call against it, you go away. You might have to make a few adjustments depending on what strategy you're using. But other than that, it's not that hard to do. You check it every Friday, every couple of Fridays, and look on it. Doesn't take much time. And so these doctors, first of all, I love working with doctors. I don't know what happened that all of a sudden these doctors are all starting to come in, and none of them know each other. Yeah. But they come in and they're like, I hate being a doctor. And I'm like, really? Like, you went to all that school because you now you don't like doing that? It seems like you're saving people's lives and you're helping people. But I'm amazed that they don't like the politics of being a doctor. They don't like being told where to be, when to be. They don't like the hierarchies of the administration. There's a lot of stuff that I've learned from these guys and ladies as well. And they don't like exchanging time for money. And so after they get into my program, they're like, wait a minute. So I always tell people they can have 4 epiphanies. Now, we don't need to go into what epiphanies they are. But once they have the second or third epiphany, they start to go, wait a minute. If I do this right, I don't have to work in a couple of years. And so they make declarations in the group at the beginning of the year. It's funny. By the end of the year, I'm going to quit my 9-to-5 job. That makes me really, it actually gives me goosebumps, and it moves me at the same time, because I really feel that what we're doing is helping people and helping people get away from that tether, and help them create whatever financial freedom they want in their life, whatever people freedom they want, location freedom. And that's what we try to do. So if you're asking how much time does it take and who can do it? Well, I have full-time people that are physicians doing it. You mentioned dentists and doctors. I have real estate people that have also come over. I have some real estate people that are like, wow, I didn't know you can make passive income in anything other than real estate. I'm never doing real estate again. And I'm one of those people. Like, I don't want any more real estate. Like I don't do it right, Gary. I'll admit. I'm the guy that at 2:00 in the morning, I'm the guy with the plunger, right? When I get the phone call, I know you're not supposed to do real estate that way, but I'm probably not big enough to do it the right way. So I just have so much luck in the stock market and so much success there that I'd rather go there.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody, especially if you're in business for yourself, you've already got the business mind. If you don't already, you'll learn it. And but hanging around other people who bring skills and talents, and if they're good guys too, be part of a group, be part of a network. I can't even say enough about it. It's hard there's a lot of intangibles that actually translate directly to the tangibles,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so if you're own your own business and you're not directly related to real estate or the stock market, join a group of guys who are and share. Yep. You bring something to the table too, by the way. And one of the things I like about this, Mark, is one of our mantras is our formula for success is really 3 things. Well, 4 things as a result, but it starts with the right education. That's number 1. We always start with the right education. Then we look for the right information. And the cool thing about the right education, it shows you how to get and use the right information. And the third step is taking right action, which is almost a certainty if you keep your emotions in check and follow what you learn, the rules of the game in the education part, then taking right action equals number 4, the right results. And it's most of the successes I've had in life were, like you said, were because I didn't make a decision in a state of heightened emotion. And the worst one is anger. I learned that whenever I made decisions out of, some type of a negative emotion, it never turns out well. But when I always tell myself, just step away for a day, come back to it the next day, and chances are you can be more rational and make a wise decision. Yeah. So in any case, I really appreciate that. And of all the things you've been talking about today, that what you mentioned early on was probably one of the most important, because it can be a pretty heady business when you're into investing, and you've got, the bigger you get, the more you have at stake. And it's almost like the gambling mentality. There's just something about it that's almost addicting. But if you can be in control of it, that's back to the control thing you mentioned. Don't ever give you up for control for health, wealth, and what was their time? Health, wealth, and time. Yeah. Staying in control. That's why I always learn first. I never just jump in and wholeheartedly hand something out to somebody. I learn first, so I know what to expect from them. They know that I know what I'm talking about. I just don't have to do the work, So I tell you what, I know we probably exhausted our half hour, but let's go. What are the websites? How can people get a hold of you? How can they look at the programs? I think this is really critical for everybody right now in this business, the marketplace that we're in, the economy. This couldn't be more timely, guys. So even if there's like a free chapter, free consultation, we'll put it in the show notes too, Mark, too, so people can actually see it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that, Gary. If you want to, I got places all over the internet, but probably the best place to find me is destinycreation.com. Think about it. It's not Destiny Creations, it's Destiny Creation. You have one destiny to create, right? Destinycreation.com. I've also got a new book called The Cash Flow Machine coming out. It's actually going to press right now as we speak.
Okay.
But you'll be able to access anything from my site, destinycreation.com. And, you can learn about it. I've got a free course. It's an accelerated training course, which features modules from what I just talked about, as well as modules from my high growth program. Again, it's if you want to have some success, I highly recommend that if you got more than $150,000, that will justify an investment into our mastermind group, and you get mentorship from me. And I have this saying, "No person left behind." And I give a money back guarantee, and I've never had to give a money back guarantee yet. And that's because everybody has succeeded so far in our program. And I don't want anybody to be the first. So if you're interested in doing something with us, then I want to get on the phone with you and have a chat, make sure that you got the right mentality and you have the right capacity to be able to do it. But anyway, destinycreation.com is the place to go to find out more about everything we do. I have a podcast. I've got books. I've got all kinds of stuff out there. And I'd love to connect with you or anybody else that wants to listen a bit more.
Well, and I appreciate that, Mark. And everybody, I just want to tell you, one of the things that's common between like Mark and I and the other guys that we were associating with and maintain lifelong friendship with is we're very disciplined. We're relentless. We do not give up. And that goes true for the people we're serving and helping. When someone comes with a hand raised for the question or a request for help or service, my mantra is this: look, I will not rest until we've accomplished what we set out to accomplish. And I know there's things to say, well, this is good for a year. This program is good for a year, whatever. I just tell me, look, you could do it in 2 weeks. You could do it in 2 months. You could do it in 2 years. Nobody knows. We have to put parameters on things to be certain. But I can tell you this, if you bring me your heart and your time and your best effort, I absolutely will match it 10-1 and we'll never get, and Mark's the same way, guys. So this is I know Mark personally. So this is not like a guest that comes off of a list. This is a different kind of a podcast. So, and by the way, since we're talking about this, if you could, as a favor, leave a review for this podcast, Mark, because that's the currency of podcast. All this, we spend time, energy, and money doing this, and the listener gets it for free, and that's beautiful. That's the way it should be. But what we do to make it good, the world keep going around is there's the reviews. So this is a good one. I'm sure if you're listening, if the departure from what you're normally used to, but absolutely necessary and complementary with everything that we teach. Couldn't be a better combination. So, Mark, any final words of wisdom, or I know it's probably a favorite question, but I personally value your judgment too.
Well, thanks. You know what? A couple of things just popped in my head. Number one, we didn't really even get to talk about cryptocurrency. I've done covered calls on cryptocurrency already, right? So the market's starting to make it so that you can make about 3% a week on cryptocurrency. I'm not recommending you do this. It was not smooth and it was not easy, and the market's not really ready yet, but you could do it. We should have another one of these where we talk about Bitcoin and crypto in the future. I just got back from El Salvador, which is the first place in the world where they're accepting Bitcoin as legal tender. And boy, it was an eye-opening, fantastic trip. They've really got it figured out down there in this little third world country. So maybe we have another chat about that. It was a lot of fun for me. But I love what you're doing. I've known you for a long time, Gary. I know you're a stand-up guy, and you're always there for other people. And so I'm honored to be on your program, and I want to thank you for the great questions that you've had. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And I do. I definitely want to. I'll say it publicly. I definitely want you back so we can talk about the crypto, because it's one of those, could be one of those once in a 1,000-year opportunities, guys, and maybe even more. This is a big deal when you're thinking about the implication. So you've got somebody like Mark who's into it, and I'm into it, and Mark's traditionally a stock guy. I'm traditionally a real estate guy, and here we're both telling you we need to spend more time on this. So let's do that, Mark. Let's do another call. Yeah. And for everybody, and for everyone listening, thank you again for doing this. And while you're leaving that review for Mark's podcast interview, go ahead and go to Mark's website, destinycreation.com. Look for the book coming out, Cash Flow Machine. I love it. I've got the massive Cash Flow podcast. You've got the Cash Flow Machine. So what a great combination.
We're about cash, baby.
That's it. And check out the globalinvestoragent.com again, especially if you're an agent. And I was talking earlier about all the consumers finding us agents out there that know how to work with investors. But if you're an agent, man, you be prepared. Famous Boy Scout motto: be prepared. The market is changing. Don't wait and be like everybody else in late 2007, 2008, 9. All those realtors scrambling. I mean, half the agents left the business. That is a fact. Don't be that half. Be the other half that sticks around and gets all the goodies. So, in any case, we'll see you on the next podcast. God bless you and your families. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.